welcome to Average Football Talk, the most average football talk show ever. I'm Anthony Miller, and this is the very first episode of the show. So, to be honest with you, don't really know how the show's going to go, not really know what the format's going to be. I think for now, we're just going to keep it to short 5 to 10 minute videos talking about one topic each day on everything football, whether that's the UFL, the CFL, the NFL, or whatever's going on in the world. So brace with me a little bit. The technology may not be great and the content may not be great, but I mean, the name of the show is Average Football Talk, so you kind of know what you're signing up for. So I did a poll over the weekend to kind of ask what you guys wanted to hear on the very first episode, and everyone talked about the UFL. That seemed to be the big one, so wanted to go ahead and kind of tackle that as the first subject of the podcast. Obviously, the big story is Mike Repole, who is now one of the new co-owners of the UFL, and he's been in the role for about a month or so. So it's been an interesting time over the last week. I would say I have been thoroughly impressed with Mike. I know I kind of talked about this on the X-Fan show last week, but really just diving a little deeper into it, I've been thoroughly impressed with him. Everything that he's done from start to finish, the way he's held himself and held the league accountable for, some of the mistakes that were made last year with the league, whether it was attendance, viewership numbers, scheduling. He's been able to hold himself accountable and the league accountable for, maybe not doing things the right way, but he's coming in. He wants to really fix a lot of the things that the league's been kind of struggling with. So I got to say, I respect the hell out of him for it, and I think it's going to make the league a lot better. So last week, the big topic was he went on the morning show with Cole Kubrick and Greg McElroy and talked about the UFL, talked about the Birmingham Stallions, and honestly, I came away with that interview not only impressed with him, but I was actually quite impressed with Cole and Greg for the questions they asked. I'm really glad that they held him accountable for a lot of the tough questions that they were asking him about. For example, a lot of the talk was, Mike Repole had tweeted about, the Birmingham Stallions and the fan base not coming out. There's been a decrease in attendance, and that part of it had to get better. Well, a lot of the stuff that Cole and Greg were talking about was, one of the games was, the Mother's Day game, which I know I kind of crapped on Stallion fans for, so I kind of understand that part. But at the same time, looking back at it now, I mean, yeah, obviously it was not a great decision by the league, but, there's only, as Mike kind of said, there's only so much the league can control when it comes down to, a lot of stuff we talked about was, we wanted more nationally televised games for the UFL, and sometimes the time slot's not going to be the greatest for the league because there's going to be other priorities when you got NBA, NHL, WNBA all happening at the same time. Those will usually take precedent over the UFL, and that's just, the harsh reality of it. I know a lot of fans may not want to hear that within the UFL, but that's just the reality of it. So, at least Mike was able to, kind of talk through, look, did I agree with that Mother's Day scheduling? Absolutely not. I think he had said that he thought it was stupid and, probably not a great decision. But, at the same time, I think Birmingham Stallion fans got to realize, you're going to run into holidays. You're going to run into competition. You're going to run into maybe time slots that are not going to exactly work for you. And the league has to do a better job of scheduling, but the city has to do a lot better of, being able to show up. Now, Birmingham is not the worst city in the UFL when it comes down to attendance and stuff like that. I think we've already kind of acknowledged that. But at the same time, I feel like there is a little bit of entitlement that comes from the Stallion fans. I feel like they have to get the best time slots. They have to get the best day. Like, there's only certain times they can do it. But, the reality is there's 7 other teams in this league that, need to fit that, those same time slots. And they got to be able to be on national television as well. So there is a balancing act there. But I was really glad that Mike had brought up the fact that, look, the Stallions are going to stay in Birmingham in 2026. I kind of figured that was going to happen. That was really no surprise to me. This whole thing was a marketing and sales ploy from Mike Repole, and honestly, I don't blame him for it. I think some people might have been rubbed the wrong way with like the extortion, approach to this. But honestly, it got sales, it got tickets. Can't really blame him. It was a good strategy. There was not a lot that the other sales teams, before Mike had come in, was really doing anything great with the ticket sales. So it almost like he kind of took it in his own hands and said, "Hey, I'm gonna do it my way, and this is how we're gonna do it," and ended up working out. The Stallions are getting thousands of season deposit ticket sales, and he's even said, "Hey, I'll come out to that first home game of the year, join those crazy shirtless fans in Birmingham." So I like the approach that they did. I probably wouldn't have done it exactly like that in terms of saying, "Hey, you need to hit this amount or you're losing your team altogether." It seemed like Birmingham was always going to be there in the first place. It was just a matter of Mike trying to push that city to step up, because Birmingham is a good city, and that team is obviously legendary for winning 3 championships in the last 4 years. So there's a lot of prestige that comes with that team. So Mike doesn't want to remove that, because he knows that's going to be a historical team that's going to live on, for years to come. So kudos to him for that. But the other big part of this whole situation with the UFL right now is the Michigan Panthers side, and what's going to happen with the Houston Roughnecks. We're going to have the Memphis Showboats. Look, I think we all know what's happening to Memphis and Houston. They're not coming back. I mean, they were horrible in attendance last year. Memphis literally had a game where they had a little bit over 2,000 fans. It's not going to happen, guys. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. Houston, Houston had the potential to be a good market, but the reality is the UFL screwed up by putting C.J. Johnson and his staff and his players from the Gamblers team as the Houston Roughnecks in 2024. That should have never happened. It should have been Wade Phillips. It should have been his staff. It should have been his team with the Roughnecks. So, that's something the UFL is gonna have to live with at this point. They'll probably have to move out of Houston, but there's always a possibility they can go back in the future. I mean, if they can bring in the right coach, the right players to that city and really attract everyone to come out to a Roughnecks game, I can definitely see them coming back to Houston in the future. But right now, it's just not working, so they have to move out. But interesting enough, Mike Repole has finally responded about Michigan Panthers. So he actually just posted today about Monday. He just posted about people asking about the Panthers. So I'm going to read the post, so I will be reading on my phone, but I wanted to kind of read what he said. So he posted saying, "I'm a big fan of Michigan and the Panthers. Attendance was up this season, but the venue remains the biggest obstacle to this market. Michigan is a passionate football state with a loyal fan base, but the current stadium options create too many challenges. That's why I keep coming back to Alumni Fi's Field. I need more info. This is the exact type of venue I have in mind for the future of the UFL. I'm trying." So this is a very interesting comment. This is something we've been waiting for the UFL fan base and the media over the last month, is for Repole to kind of respond about what's going on with Michigan. So I kind of figured this was going to be the deal. Look, from what I've heard, they're paying a lot of money to lease out Ford Field. I think I had seen, I don't know if this is true, but I had seen that they're might be paying like $500,000 per game just to lease out Ford Field. And I can understand that the league, Mike is probably trying to save some money at this point. Ford Field is expensive. And the one thing that Repole did bring up over the last few weeks is I'm tired of seeing these, when I watch UFL games, the COVID style fan bases in these games. And what he means by that is, having 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 fans at a game. Like, he wants everyone to be over 10,000 plus a game next year, which is exactly what the goal needs to be. Now, for Michigan, let's remember, they got up to, I think, about 11,000, 12,000 fans per game last year, which is the highest they've ever done. And, you include that last game of the year against the Houston Roughnecks, they had over 16,000 tickets sold. So the potential is there for Michigan. And that's why I always thought, it was kind of weird that he was always, pushing on the Birmingham Stallions stuff, but I was like, what the hell about, Michigan? I mean, obviously the Panthers have done a really good job, and, they've increased attendance in, every year. I mean, it seems like pretty obvious that they should stay there and keep building on that. So that to me sounds like Mike is really pushing on Michigan. He wants to stay in that market, but unfortunately, he doesn't want to play in Ford Field. And the one thing he's talked about is, I want to play in soccer stadiums. That seems to be smaller stadiums, soccer stadiums, not necessarily college stadiums. I think he kind of mentioned that a few weeks ago that he wants to stay away from that. But this new Alumni Fi Field, which is going to be, I think, Detroit City FC's new stadium that's coming up in 2027, I believe. That would be an ideal stadium. It sounds like it's going to be roughly 15,000 seats in that stadium, which is perfect size for the UFL. It would probably remind people a lot of like Audi Field in DC. That would make a ton of sense for the UFL. So now it brings up an interesting question on, can the UFL wait another year or so before going into that stadium? Because it sounds like they would have to get through the 2026 season. To me, if you're trying to invest in the future, it almost makes sense just to play at Ford Field and then just sell tickets in the lower bowl, which I think still comes out to like almost 30,000 seats, in that lower bowl. Which, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we all know Ford Field is not going to look great on TV for the UFL just because, it's an NFL stadium. And the UFL should not be in NFL stadiums, but, I think they made do with what they had in the Detroit area and, use Ford Field. So I still think Ford Field is not a bad option to have. I really hope that the Panthers stay next year. I think it makes a ton of sense just to keep building on the momentum they've had. But, if they thought about moving into other stadiums, like I know Mike Repole doesn't want to go to college stadiums, but, Eastern Michigan makes a ton of sense. I would probably go there, use the facilities for 1 year, and then move into, Detroit City FC's new stadium, because that would make a ton of sense. But, I think that's going to be interesting to see, what's going to happen, because it sounds like the UFL wants to finalize their plans for 2026 by mid-September. So I think we're still kind of a few weeks away from knowing exactly what's going to happen in the upcoming season. We already know about Columbus, and in fact, Columbus is already taking season ticket deposits, which is great. So I'd be interested to kind of hear the numbers behind how many tickets are they selling and how much interest is in Columbus for it. But that market should do really well. My assumption is they're going to replace the showboats and kind of take over that spot. Now it's going to be a matter of these rumored other cities like Louisville and Louisville/Lexington, Boise, Orlando/Tampa Bay, which one is going to take over for the Houston Roughnecks, and then is there someone that is going to take over the Michigan Panthers? So it seems like it's still a fluid situation. It seems like Repole wants to stay in Detroit, so it's just a matter of finding the right venue, and he's going to have to put up some work to get there, but it sounds like there's still a little hope for the Panther fans, so let's hope they end up staying there. So that's it. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on the UFL, where you think it stands so far. I think this is going really well, so far with Mike Repole, but there's still a ton of work that needs to be done. And, there's a lot of words right now, but, a lot of fans want to see action. So let me know what you think. Appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully this will get a little bit better than this first episode. But I appreciate you guys listening and watching, and I'll be back for the next episode. See you guys.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.